What's going on, guys? Asian Eyes White Dragon here. So I wanted to make a video talking about the staples in Yu-Gi-Oh! And any meta deck is pretty much going to be running these. And if you have room, you definitely should be considering these cards. But I feel like these cards all deserve a spot in your main deck if you want to take Yu-Gi-Oh! More seriously and want to make a tier 1 deck. Basically, these cards are going to be seen in your main deck. However, there are some cards that might conflict or not work with certain decks, but keep that in mind that these cards are for majority of, high-level competitive meta. So we're going to start off with a card that definitely hasn't seen itself in a while in Yu-Gi-Oh! But, when it came back, obviously it's going to be ran in every deck, essentially, and that is Blackluster, and he just nets too much card advantage, attacking twice, if your opponent has Stardust Scrap Dragon, that was a really good play. If you had Stardust Scrap Dragon, you're pretty much set up to win, but Blackluster Soldier kind of changed that when he can attack over both, or, just remove. He's overall really good, and if you can run Honest in your deck, it's just really too good of a card, and he's just really easy to get out, really. Next card to talk about is Gores. You shouldn't be running too much traps at the moment in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just because of hand traps being so relevant in the game. Hand traps being Maxi Effect Filler DD Crow. But Gores just really lets you take advantage of your opponent if you're in the right situation. An early game Gores is still good, and I feel like a late game Gores is still good. And he's just a really overall solid card, plus he's dark. And he's level 7, and he gets a level 7 token. And if you're running Glow Up Bulb, 1-for-1 Glow Up Bulb, and you can synchro twice with 2 level 8s, and that's absolutely great. If you can get Stardust Scrap Dragon, again, it's just a really good setup. Gore's just really good, and I feel like even if you're running traps, heavy traps, you should still be running Gores because heavy's obviously back in the game. Next card I'm going to talk about is Thunder King. Most decks are main decking 2 of these. Obviously, some of these cards you might want to be playing more of, less of, just depending on how much room you have in your deck, really. I feel like Thunder King definitely is just so good. It shuts down a lot of mechanics of how decks run. Karakuri's, if you go first turn summon Thunder King, they're really in a bad situation. Unless running Hapia, but really Thunder King is just too good. Of a card, essentially. Obviously, you can duality, then get your Thunder King, and then they can't duality. Really good stuff. And plus, it hurts Infernities, and it hurts Karakuris a lot, and it even kind of shuts down Lightsworn until they get Jane, really. Or if they have Honest in their hand, or Raikou. Or they mill Wolf. There's a lot of stuff that Lightsworn can really do, and then they can just, sack out of it. But really, Thunder King is just really good, because it stops them from using Charge Light Brigade. And, it basically runs over everything, and obviously Judgment Dragon, you tribute it. Just too good of a card, and overall solid for attack. The defense is obviously really not so great, but yeah, it's just overall really great, and it shuts down a lot of mechanics of decks. Usually people will go XYZ, and then you're kind of forced to negate it, or if they go Venus, and then you're kind of forced to negate it. But yeah, if they don't have Venus, and they have to go Earth, and then you can basically, they have to be using Honest or using Venus, and they have to draw into it. But yeah, again, Thunder King is just really relevant, plus Light for BLS, obvious reasons. These cards kind of go well together, Tourgade and Sangan. Yeah, they go really well together. First turn going for that Zen Maze, the XYZ Zen Maze is really good, or just getting that Sangan on the field, really good play too. If you happen to open up with enemy controller, and your opponent goes first, and let's say they go Tour Guide Sangan, leave Sangan on the field. You go Tour Guide, get my Sangan, and go enemy controller, tribute my Sangan, take your Sangan, I get my Sangan's effect, and then I get to XYZ with your Sangan, and now you don't have its effect. Really great play in Yu-Gi-Oh! And yeah, it nets really too much card advantage. Allows you to put 3 monsters essentially in if you are XYZing and for Pot of Avarice, and you get 2 darks. Dark Arm's really relevant. It's just really good. The card advantage that Tour Guide really generates is just too good, and Tour Guide Sangan definitely deserves a spot in the main deck of high-level competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Next card I want to talk about, this one's more preference, really, is Tragodia. I really feel like Trag deserves a spot, just because of, XYZ's being really good, and, obviously taking people's monster in the game is really good. But mostly because in high-level competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, if you're going to regionals, you're going to end up playing one person running that Rabbit Loggia deck. And this card shuts that deck down almost just by itself. And if they don't warning this, they're in a really bad position. Their out is basically Deep Prison Smashing Ground. Some of them are running Forbidden Lance, but they'll have to, Lance if you, you'll have to have, 6 cards in your hand, and then they'll have to, Lance too. But to bring it down to a lower attack. But Trag is just really good. Like obviously, like Dolka can't stop it. I mean, if you're using the effect, yeah, Dolka can stop it, but you're just going to be using it to attack with. And if you're playing against 6 Samurais for whatever reason, yeah, like Trag stops 6 Samurais too. It it stops a lot of decks from actually functioning correctly. Like first turn, if you have a bad hand, you just drop that Trag, and then like you can sit on Trag and just poke people, and then like they really have to have like they have to synchro up or go for an XYZ, or like sometimes like if you're playing against Rabbit Lodgia, like if you drop that Trag and you don't attack because you're afraid of like a D prison, they'll sit there and they'll go for Zen mains, and they'll just sit there for a long time. And that's why Trag is just really good. It lets you really just stay on your card advantage. But even if you're running multiple traps, Trag is still good, because you shouldn't be like going first turn set all 5. If you're going first turn set all 5, you're probably running Starlight Road. And at that case, if you're playing Starlight Road, you might not consider Trag in the main deck. But I really feel like this card definitely deserves a spot in a staple in Yu-Gi-Oh! Next card is what I want to talk about, and there are 2 cards that kind of like, you know, they're both the hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh! The most relevant ones. Duty Crow's a very good card as well, but, you know, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, whereas everyone is special summoning like crazy, and it doesn't even happen from, like, the grave anymore, Maxi is just overall really solid card. You know, when your opponent goes first turn like Rabbit, and you just Maxi, you just net card advantage to yourself, because Lodgia is an auto +1 against you, these are both cards you can search with Sangan. Maxi isn't usually summonable. I mean, you can go like Debris Dragon and summon Maxi, but Valor, however, is summonable. It is a tuner, and it is also level 1, so you can sync up with it. Really good to sync up with like a Gores. But Effect Failure is just really good to stop plays. Depending on, you know, how many you really want to run, how much space you have in your main deck to actually run multiples of these is kind of up to you. But I really feel like these 2 cards definitely deserve a spot in the main deck, mostly because Effect Failure is also a tuner. It's also a light for BLS. Plus, hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh! Aren't really things that you can see, because like if your opponent has like 5 cards in their hand, 0 back row, you really feel like if you were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, you know, a while ago, you'd be like, oh, okay, I can make a big push, he has no back row. But then, like, you go for your big push and then drop that Maxi, and then you're like, oh, wow, it kind of, like, hurts my stuff. And then, you know, obviously, Valor, same way, if your opponent's like, oh, he's only got, you know, 1 monster on the field, that 1 monster is like a Judgment Dragon or, like, a Dark Armed, and they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go for Trish to get rid of that. And you go Effect Valor, and then you use multiple cards to get out Trish. It really puts them in a bad situation where they're like, oh, it's a really good out, essentially. When you kind of have, like, you have control over the field, but you don't have any back row, it's just, I really feel like it's just too good. Plus these cards, you know, just go in the grave. More cards for Avarice, but these are cards that I definitely think that deserve a spot in the main deck. But there obviously is a lot of other cards that you guys can consider too. But let me know in the comments below if you feel like there's any other cards that should be in here as far as monster-wise for the staples in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I feel like these ones are kind of more personal, but I feel like that they are quite relevant in the meta, and these are really great cards. But if you want to go ahead and check out part 2, go ahead and click on the annotation below. But thanks for watching, guys. Asian Eyes White Dragon, signing out.